Welcome in, everybody. My beautiful, beautiful soul collective, my divine feminines, my divine masculines, my star seeds, anybody on the spiritual path and the spiritual journey, welcome in. My name is Shannon. This is Cosmic Goddess Healing. And I felt really guided today to finally share my full story. This has been something I've been procrastinating on since starting this channel. It's totally terrifying to me to be this vulnerable and share this openly with strangers, with the world. But I had intentions today of doing nothing because it's very gloomy out today. And I will be going back into work tomorrow, and I know it's going to be hectic and chaotic and busy. And I kind of was just going to use today to do nothing and just relax. But the universe had other plans for me today. So here I am. I've already done one video today talking about attracting toxic partners and how to break that loop and how to make changes to start attracting in better partners. But as I was making that video and I was talking about that part of my life, because that was a huge part of my story and a huge part of my healing journey, was learning how to have self-love, self-respect, self-empowerment. These were all huge learning pieces along the way, and it was through romantic partnerships that I learned those things. But as I was doing that video, I kept feeling this urging, like, it's time. You have a perfect day today of nothing to do, nowhere to go. As you can see, I'm nice and cozy on my couch with my blankets, and I really wanted to be in a comfortable place to do this video because it's going to get raw, it's going to get real, it's going to get vulnerable. I don't know how long this video is going to be. I'm not going to worry about that though, because I think it's just important that I tell my story. Because I'm sure there's other people out there, men and women, who are going to relate to this story and feel seen, feel heard, feel like they're not alone in the world. And maybe that's the reason God wants me to make this. So here goes. My story began when I was a young child growing up in a very abusive household. My father was an alcoholic, but he was in a 12-step program at that time, except we would call him a dry drunk. Although he was in a program, he wasn't really doing any work on himself, so his behaviors were still there. He yelled a lot, he hit us a lot, he hit the dogs a lot in the household. And then I had a mom who was very passive, who was just as afraid of him as we were. And she wasn't able to protect us in the way that she should have. And I've done a lot of work with her. We've moved past it. I've forgiven her. We've worked through a lot of that pain, thank God. My father has since passed, so I didn't really get the opportunity to do that healing work with my dad in the 3D, because the last version of my father, not to jump ahead, but he died in active alcoholism and an active drug addiction. So we never got to have that healing moment like I did with my mother. So the last year for me has been very big in healing my father wounds and those childhood traumas that were created from the father wound. I had both father and mother wounds, though. The mother wound was not feeling chosen. Um, my mom and dad split up when I was fairly young. And when my mom and dad split up, my mom had a pattern of choosing men over me and my sister. She was insecure. She needed constant validation from men. And then I learned the behavior that, oh, okay, this is what you do. You don't get the validation from home, so you go out and you seek that validation from a partner. So these were learned behaviors for me as a child of how you go out and get your validation in the world, not from yourself, because neither one of my parents knew how to do that. So I didn't get taught you self-validate, you love yourself. I was taught you go out and you find it through drugs, through alcohol, through relationships. Those were the three things I was taught as a child. as coping mechanisms, as mechanisms to feel loved and seen and validated. Um, so of course, fast forward, mom has cycled through many relationships. I mean, I was even brought on dates with her at a very young age because she didn't have a babysitter. So here I was, a young child, feeling incredibly awkward and very uncomfortable to be in this setting with my mother, who's in a romantic whatever with this new person, and here I am tagging along on this date watching. And I mean, it's so messed up when I say it right now, but this was normal for us. This, I thought this was normal type of behavior. um, so naturally, as you can imagine, not being seen, heard, validated as a child, as I grew up, I started gravitating to the wrong people. I started gravitating to the rebels, to the troublemakers, to the kids that were getting into drugs and alcohol. That is who I gravitated towards because I felt like I fit in with them. I felt like I was seen by them. I felt like they loved and cared about me. More so, just I felt like I fit in. And that's where I started learning that drugs and alcohol make you feel good. They make you feel a certain way. And I liked the way they made me feel. I liked the confidence the alcohol gave me. Um, I felt, I felt like the person I wanted to be when I was on drugs and alcohol back then. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. And then that catapulted me in at meeting my husband later on. You know, I'd slept with people at a very young age. I didn't think that that was sacred growing up. I instantly started seeking validation from men as soon as I was at an age to start being attractive, and you know, men started noticing me. And I mean, I was the kind of girl in grade 9 that I shot up into being a woman. I grew tall, I was slender, I was beautiful. And I mean, I wouldn't have said those things back then, but like now that I know who I am and looking back, you know, I was someone that got quite a lot of attention, but the wrong attention. But to me, it was attention all the same. I would get so obsessive over guys back then. If I had my sights set on somebody, oh my God, the obsessiveness that would come out of me. I would walk by wherever I thought they were, hoping they'd notice me. You know, I'd go put myself in situations where I thought they might be, hoping we'd run by one another, like really, you know, not so healthy things that I was doing to get their attention, to get them to notice me. Um, so yeah, I did find a husband very young. I got married at the age of 19. My husband was 9 years older than me. But I desperately wanted to play house. I desperately wanted to feel the safety and security of being in a partnership and playing house. I wanted to be a grown up, and I wanted to be a grown up very quickly. Um, I never just could settle into the space that I was in. I always wanted more, and I wanted to get further ahead, and I wanted to be older than what I was. And I was never just accepting and happy with the place that I was at in my life growing up. And I never understood that. Um, I did have two beautiful children with my husband. We got pregnant with twins naturally, very quickly. I mean, we were married, and a few months later, I found out I was pregnant. So I was also a mom at a very young age. I was 20 when I had my girls. And I mean, I was a baby. When I look back at photos of me pregnant, I was a child. I looked like a child having children. Um, and as you can imagine, people weren't very supportive of that right away. They were like scared, they were worried, they thought it was happening too fast. I mean, obviously, everybody got on board eventually, but it things did happen very quickly. Um, but I wasn't ready to hold love back then. I didn't even know how to love myself back then. So I didn't know how to love another person because I was working from a place of insecurity. I was working from a place of not being worthy enough and not feeling good enough. And I was needing constant validation from my partner. And, you know, I look back now, and my husband at the time, he was a great provider. I will give him that. He was a wonderful provider. He went to work and worked long hours so that I could be home with our girls. And I took that for granted. Again, because I didn't know how to love myself and I didn't know how to respect myself, I cheated on him multiple times because he wasn't home and I wasn't getting the validation from him and I wasn't getting the attention from him. And I hurt him. I hurt him deeply because I always got caught. He always found out. And I would always feel so disgusting with myself after it happened. And then when he found out and I saw the hurt I'd caused him, um, it crushed me, but I still wasn't at a place where I was ready to do anything about it. It crushed me, but I didn't want to face the fact that there was something wrong with me that was making me behave this way and hurting the people that I loved. So we had a very tumultuous back and forth relationship. He left me obviously after finding out of about the cheating, and we sold our home and separated, and things got hard for me. Being a single parent was not all that I thought it was going to be. And I was a grass is going to be greener on the other side kind of girl back then. And I thought, oh, perfect, I'll get rid of him. He's the problem. I'm not the problem. It's him. He works too much. I'm going to go be on my own and find myself and be powerful. And that's not what happened. I struggled. I struggled greatly because I was always working from a place of lack and not being worthy. So why the heck would I ever make enough money beyond that? That was my experience, that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy enough. So naturally, that was my circumstance. That was my experience. And I was never making enough money to live comfortably. We were always in a state of struggle, just getting by. I don't know how many times I had to go to my mom and my grandma for help financially to help my kids when they needed braces or when I wanted to send them to summer camp. It was awful. It was degrading, but it was part of my journey and it was what I needed. I needed to struggle like that. I needed to experience that so that I could also show myself that I can overcome it. Um, Sadly, that part of my journey is not where I can say I chose to overcome. That's the part of my journey where I made a decision to leave the city, move in with a family member who was engaged to a very toxic partner at the time. And sadly, that toxic partner introduced me to hard drugs and the lifestyle of, let's just call it gangster. I'm just going to call it that because I don't want to get into the particular lifestyle that that person introduced me to. I don't even want to give it energy or talk about it, because there was a time in my life where I thought that was cool. I thought that gangster lifestyle was so cool, and I was so proud that I fit into that and that they were welcoming me into their circle and into their lifestyle. I thought that made me cool, but it didn't. If anything, I see now that those people didn't look at me with respect. They looked at me like I was an object, and they did not have respect for me at all. And I was not cool because I was part of that world. If anything, my world was about to go further downhill because of my connections with this type of lifestyle. Um, that's when the drugs got really bad for me. That's where my addiction truly began because I wasn't coping. I was in survival mode. At this point, I'd uprooted my life. I moved north of the city when I was used to living in the city. I moved away from friends. I also enrolled in school at this point. So now I am going to university. I am trying to be a single mom of my girls who at this point are about maybe 9 years old. I'm living in this very toxic household with a lot of toxic people and more toxic people coming in and out of the household. And I'm also being a caretaker to my father at this time, who was very deep into his drug addiction and ended up going to jail. And I stupidly agreed to be his surety. And dad moved into that toxic household with us and couldn't listen to any of the rules, did whatever he wanted, smoked in the house when we asked him not to. It was madness. That time in my life was absolute madness. And all that it did because I didn't have a voice. I couldn't speak up for myself. I was such a friggin' people pleaser back then, doing whatever anybody wanted to keep the peace. I didn't want to fight. Even if I knew you were wrong, I would still be the person to apologize to you to make things better. And then I'd go get high because I'd feel like shit. I would feel like I didn't speak my truth. My soul was feeling like this is not right. So what I would do is go numb. I would go use drugs to numb out to the fact that I wasn't living my truth, that I wasn't living my honesty. And um, you know, I fast forward a little bit, you know, during that time, that I'd say there was 10 years of my life of drug addiction. And I mean, you can imagine if you've experienced drug addiction, you've been an addict yourself, you know, the downward spiral that that takes you in. It got so bad, my addiction, where I felt like I'm never going to be able to stop. Like, I'm never going to be able to quit this shit. It doesn't matter what I do, nothing gets better. I'm never going to break this cycle. So I tried to kill myself. I made a really good attempt at killing myself. And I had sent my kids away for the evening. One was with my sister, one was with my mom, and I never told anybody. And it was a really weird calm that came over me that evening. I remember the sun coming through my bedroom windows, and I'm actually going to get emotional talking about this. Whew. I remember laying in my bed, and I had just taken every pill I could find. I'd had a box of like all these free samples from my doctor of pretty potent medication. And I had taken every pill I could find in that house that I thought was going to do damage to me. And I remember, I remember laying in my bed that night, and like I truly was at peace with this idea that I was going to leave my kids, that like life was so bad for me that I couldn't see a way through. I couldn't see a light at the end of the tunnel, and I truly thought that the world would be better off without me, that I was just a waste of space hurting the people that I loved, and that I was never going to get better. I was never going to beat this. So I was just better off to be gone. And I remember feeling the sun coming through my bedroom window, and it was really odd, because I felt this calm. I felt like this calm came over me, like I'm okay with this decision. I'm at peace with this decision, and I trust this decision. And clearly, it didn't work. Thank God. I woke up the next morning not very well, I might add. I couldn't see. I could barely stand up. I was not okay. I had to go to, I was supposed to go to work that day, and um, I couldn't even read the phone to text my boss to say I was sick and I wasn't coming into work. Like, I don't even know how I got the text message out because I couldn't see. I was blind. Like I could just see blurriness because of the effects of all these medications that I had taken together. Um, and my sister had showed up at my house the next day, and me and her were not on good terms at this point. We'd both done some pretty bad things to one another, and we betrayed each other pretty badly along the way. And we were not on good terms at this point. And but I think she felt it, and she showed up at my house the next day worried about me. And I came to the door, and she knew right away that something was not okay. And I told her, like, I'm not okay. You need to keep my daughter for another night or two. Like, this is what's happened. I need to just like be on my own here today to like ride this out. I probably should have gone to the hospital, but I was afraid. I was afraid of being judged. I was afraid of the stigma around, you know, I didn't want to be locked up either, because I probably would have if I had gone in with a proper suicide attempt. And I don't know, I didn't go. What I did do is the next day, when I felt a little bit better, I called my mom and I told her the truth, and I told her what had been going on, because I forgot to mention my mom is also in recovery, and she'd been in recovery from my teenage years on. She finally recognized she also had problems and needed a 12-step program. So I'm very grateful that I knew where to go when my turn came. And I did reach out to my mom and I told her what happened. And I surrendered and I said, I can't do this anymore, Mom. I'm an addict and I can't stop. And I'm finally ready to admit this. And I'm finally ready to surrender to this. And I wish I could tell you that that was it for me, that I didn't do any drugs again after that, but that's not my story, unfortunately. It was the beginning of my journey in recovery, though, and I did go to meetings, and I wasn't honest though. I wasn't fully ready to stop. I was still not ready to face my demons and to face my traumas, and I was someone who stuffed them. I learned as a child in an angry household, you stuff your feelings. You don't talk. You're not valuable. What you have to say is not valuable. So just keep it down, stuff it down. Um, and that was a huge remembering and learning I had in the last year through these intense shamanic journeyings that I've done with these beautiful shamans that I've met, that I've had two beautiful experiences with in the last year. I really learned that that was a big theme for me, is I didn't let my emotions out and I stuffed them my whole life. And the stuffing of them caused so many problems for me and physical ailments. And I'm grateful that I've released a lot of that stuff now, so it's not festering in my body anymore like it used to. um Anyways, fast forward from that moment, I was with a partner at that time too. He left me naturally because of my addiction. And I had to move back home. I had to move in with my mom for a while and try and get my shit together, but I didn't. I didn't make the choice to get it together. I took my mom for granted and I let her watch my children while I continued to go out and do what I wanted to do and get high. And um, eventually mom had to put her foot down and say, enough, no more. Like, you're not getting it. You're not using this as a time to get yourself better. You need to leave. You need to leave my house. And I kind of was like, well, what do you mean? Like, I don't have anywhere to go. Like, who's going to take me? And sadly, I had to go to my dad's, and my dad's house was not a good house. He was very heavily into drug and alcohol addiction. He was living with a partner that was very heavily into drug and alcohol addiction. Um, and that's where I went. I begged my mom to keep my children. And I'm not proud to say that as a mother, that I had to leave my daughters with my mom for a couple of years, um, in the name of I'm going to go get better. But how could I have ever gotten better living in such a toxic household? The level of abuse that I took from my father living in that house at that time was, yeah, it was a powerful teacher, to say the least. um, the things that he said to me, the abusive comments he made to me, that I'll amount to nothing, I'm a whore just like my mother. Awful, awful things. He would steal my prescription medications and tell me I had to give them to him because that was my rent. These were medications that I needed that were being given to me, but they were narcotics. So dad felt like he had every right to take them from me, and he would dish them out to me when he felt I deserved one. God, that's so fucked up to say. Um, yeah, that's a really messed up thing to recognize and remember, but that is the truth, and that's my story, and that's what happened. And we'd have fun nights in that household, when everyone was getting along and there was plenty of drugs to go around, everything was going really well. But when the drugs were running dry and, dad didn't have his fix, the whole house would know it. And I remember one night in that household, I was also very much taught to shoplift in that house. That was another thing I was told I had to do to provide. If I couldn't give money, then I needed to steal and participate that way in the household. So I was taught how to shoplift living in that household. And I used to be proud to say I was so good at it, but I'm not proud to say that anymore. That's not something to be proud of. And I have made my amends by giving back where I can to fix the things I've taken, um, the things that I've stolen. I have made peace along the way with that and given to charities and other ways to give back. Anyways, I remember one night being in that household, and I just was done. I was so done with everything. I was so sick of living this way. Like, this is years now of living like this. I'm not with my children anymore. I'm choosing to not be with them, and I'm choosing not to get better. And I was just so sick and tired of myself. I was so sick and tired of myself by this point. And I remember I was looking out the window, and it was nighttime and the moon was out and it was really bright. And I remembered looking up at the moon and saying, God, please, God, if you're out there, please give me a sign that this is going to get better. Please give me a sign that this is not it for me. And all of a sudden, I saw this shooting star fly across the sky. And this is no joke. I saw this. And I remember bawling my eyes out in my bedroom, looking at the sky, feeling like God's with me. God's with me. It's going to be okay. Things are going to get better. I'm going to be okay. And I remember making a decision at that point to go to detox and to go to treatment. And I did go to detox. I wasn't fully ready still yet. I mean, I remember trying to call my dad's partner, trying to get her to sneak drugs into detox. And I can laugh about that now because clearly that's really messed up behavior, but that's very common addict behavior. Um, and I'm glad she said no. I'm glad she told on me and, told my mom on me that I was doing this, and I hated her in the moment, but I'm glad she did because everybody needed to know I wasn't fully ready. So off I did go to North Bay for this treatment program. Probably wasn't the right treatment program for me because you had the ability to leave. After a couple of weeks of being there, you could leave and not be supervised. You could leave with another person that had been there for 2 weeks already. And of course, I gravitated to the most unhealthy girls I could find in that place, who were from North Bay, who knew all the right people to go to get what we needed. And eventually I got kicked out of that treatment facility. And I had nowhere to go. I was officially homeless at that point. I had like suitcases, garbage bags of pillows and blankets, and I had no vehicle. I didn't drive at this point. My license had been taken from me. Um, and Actually, I'm sorry. The license had not been taken from me at this point. I just wasn't driving at that point. I didn't have a car. And I remember at that point thinking, oh my God, like, this is scary. Like, I'm homeless. I have nowhere to go. My mom won't take me in. My dad is not even wanting to take me back in. I truly had nowhere to go. And um, thank God, I was only about a week of living on the streets, which was awful. I ended up getting kicked out with a girl that I met at the treatment center, and we lived in this disgusting motel that was infested with bed bugs. So now all of my stuff is now infested with bed bugs that I'm carrying around with me from place to place. Um, and I remember the weird thing is one of my best friends, Corrado, he was my very first love in life. I adored him when we were 13. I fell so madly in love with him. He was my first love experience. And we stayed friends and we stayed in touch. And he also struggled with addiction. And he reached out to me randomly out of nowhere, asking me how I was doing. And I told him the truth that I'm not good. And I'm living on the streets of North Bay right now, and I have nowhere to go, and I'm scared and I don't know what to do. And he said, "You know what? I have a little bit of money left, and I can either go buy drugs with that money, or I'm going to buy you a bus ticket and see if my mom and dad will let you come and move in with us, and you can get clean, and we're going to get clean together." And the funny part is, I told him I need a couple of days to think about that. How messed up is that? That I actually thought to myself, ooh, am I ready? Like, do I want to leave this? This was not fun. I was living in a friggin' hotel with bed bugs. I had to wear hoodie sweaters tied up tight so they couldn't get in. I had gloves on, I had long sleeves. Like, it was awful how I had to go to bed at night because these bugs were coming and just chewing us apart at night. Um, it was awful. But I made the right choice and I allowed him to buy me that bus ticket and I moved to St. Catharines. And you know what? I did give myself a great head start. And I stayed in St. Catharines with that beautiful family, Joe and Arlene. I love you so much. I'm incredibly grateful for you letting me move in with you guys and giving me a head start. I did get clean. I got clean for about a year and a half. And then I stupidly made the mistake of getting involved with a man and getting in a relationship. And I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready for that relationship. And I hadn't done any of the healing work on my past traumas yet. So, of course, I naturally attracted in another toxic man. And we moved back to Newmarket together. And it was awful, to say the least. I finally got my kids back at this point, and this man was horrible to my children. He treated them like shit. I saw it right away, and I was like, what have I done? What the fuck have I done? Excuse my language, but what have I done? How could I have let this person in my life? How could I can't stay with him. I can't do this with him. So I left him. I can't believe it, but I left him. And I ended up again moving back home with my mom for a little bit. And just trying to focus on me a little bit. And, I was going to meetings regularly at this point. And I wish I could say that I stayed clean then, but I didn't. Um, I think that relationship falling apart, there was a baby involved in that relationship. And that that baby's not with us. That baby is gone and lost. And I needed to go through a lot of healing after the loss of that baby. But that baby was never meant to come into this world. That baby would have tied me to that man for the rest of my life. So I knew the baby wasn't meant to be here. But it was part of my journey, and I needed to grieve the loss of that baby. And um, just grieve. I was grieving a lot at that point. Um, but I was trying to find a life for myself. I didn't want to go backwards. I still was dabbling in drugs though at this point. After the loss of the baby, I did get back into drugs a little bit because I had no coping mechanisms and I didn't know how to regulate my emotions. And I ended up getting a cute little apartment, me and my kids. And of course, I met another man. And Nathan was a really beautiful but broken soul. And Nathan taught me what unconditional love was. Nathan loved every bit of me, good, bad, ugly, insecure. He loved all of me. And that man taught me how to love unconditionally. Not right away. I didn't see it. I didn't appreciate that from him right away. Eventually, I did move in with him. We lived on the same street, oddly enough. We called it, I lived on the bottom of Oakcrest. He lived up at the top. And we met on a dating app, weirdly enough. And we were like, it was instant with us. I wasn't sure of him at first, but he grew on me over time. And I loved his attention. And I loved how doting he was on me and how beautiful he was with my kids and how silly he was with them. And he brought a lot of laughter and fun back into our household, because there was a lot of struggle still going on in our household, and I wasn't making enough to pay the bills. There was days we had nothing in the bank and scraping by whatever food we had left, and it was awful. It was a really awful place in my life to be. And then I moved in with Nathan. Unfortunately, though, Nathan had demons as well, and we began drug addiction together again. And pretty heavily, we got into the drugs, and I eventually came into a pretty substantial inheritance from a grandfather that had passed away. And I blew all that money on drugs. Not much of that money went to good. Much of that money was spent on drugs. And my drug addiction took a whole new turn, and I overdosed. I overdosed 2 times within a 2 week period. Um, it was really scary. I The first time was terrifying, and I had to be brought to the hospital, and I had a seizure, and that's when they took my license from me, because I'd had a seizure due to a drug overdose. Um, I was a pretty severe addict at this point. My style of using was injection. That's what it led to. It didn't start out that way, but in the end of my addiction, that's where things ended. I was injecting, and it's a pretty scary way to use. Um, and then you think that would be it for me. I'd had this overdose. My kids are teenagers at this point. They know what's going on. I'm locking myself in my bedroom at night. And thank God they had each other. I'm so grateful those two girls had one another as twins, because that's what got them through that hard part where I just wasn't able to step up and be the mom I wanted to be for them. And it wasn't all bad. I don't want you to think, oh, I neglected them. And there was a lot of love going on too. And, we would do fun things together. But then late at night, I'd be in my room, me and my boyfriend, Nathan, locked up doing drugs. And they knew it. They weren't stupid. They knew what was going on when the door would get closed. So after that overdose, a couple of weeks later, I had another one. And this one, I died. This one, I flatlined. I was blue. Nathan had to revive me as the paramedics arrived. This one was bad. And I remember feeling so ashamed of myself, so embarrassed as I'm being wheeled out and down the stairs, and my kids are watching. I just felt just horrified with myself, so sick and tired again of what the frig am I living my life like this for? Like, this is crazy. What am I doing? And I remember the police treated me so terribly at the hospital that day, basically told me I was a waste of a hospital bed. Um, Pretty much like, just die already because you're wasting this hospital bed, was the message these two policemen gave to me that day, which shame on you two. If you ever come across this video, shame on the two of you, because I was just a sick woman. I didn't want to be that way. I didn't choose that. I was very thick into my disease, and my choices were taken from me at that point. So shame on you for shaming me even more, when all I needed was some support. I just needed people to see me and support me and love me. So shame on you two police officers that treated me like that night in the hospital. I hope you never have to have a family member that is an addict or an alcoholic. I hope you never have to experience alcoholism or addiction, because it's a hard journey. Anyways, rant done there. Um, so that was it for me. January 8th, 2018 is my clean date. That was the last, the 7th was my last use. That was my last overdose. That was my last time. And I've not looked back since. I've I've been on this beautiful journey now of recovery, and I left that relationship with Nathan, because he didn't want to stop using, and I knew I had to. Um, so I left that relationship, and I'm sad to say that a year later, Nathan died of an overdose. And that was the next level of my healing. Losing him was whew, the hardest thing I've ever had to go through beyond addiction. Losing that man, it was like a piece of my heart got ripped out. Um, but he showed up for me. He showed up and gave me so many beautiful signs and symbols that he was around me in spirit. And that lifted me up, and that empowered me to know that there's more beyond life, that there is more beyond what we can see. And it really made me want to understand spirituality a little bit more. And I did have spiritual experiences along the way as a child, and I knew there was something more, but I just never really tapped into it. And it wasn't until I started living with Nathan and I started playing around with tarot decks and oracle decks, and I had a beautiful woman in my life who I called a stepmom at one point. And Kim, if you ever see this, thank you. You introduced me to Reiki, even. You gave me a book about Reiki, and you started introducing me to tarot cards, the animal oracle card deck you gave me. Kim was the catalyst to introducing me to these spiritual topics and things that started opening my mind a little bit to the possibilities of what could be out there. And I really was interested in readings and spirituality. And that's when I started finding an interest in Reiki. And I'll be honest with you, my journey with Reiki started when I was an addict. I got certified as a level 1 and 2 during my drug addiction, which is crazy to think of. And as I do my Reiki mastery right now, I've been doing a lot of pondering back to that time. And um, even in my addiction, I was being called to spiritual topics and spiritual things, almost like a guiding light. God was trying to pull me out of this space of addiction and despair and hopelessness by giving me these little hopes, by giving me these little nuggets of information to show me there's more out there. Um, Losing Nathan, moving out from Nathan's home was the start of my spiritual journey. It was the start of my divine feminine journey. And that was, God, about 7 years ago. Yeah, about 6.5 years ago. um, Making the choice to move out of his house when I was so afraid to do so. I was so afraid to be by myself. I'd been with him for 5, 6 years. I didn't know what it felt like to live alone. And all I could remember was struggle. Living alone equaled struggle. And that's all I could think of. And then, of course, God presented the best opportunity for me. I ended up finding a great apartment that was in my price range, which I never thought was going to be possible. My girls were gone off to university at this point in residency, so I didn't need to find an apartment big enough for all of us, because they had places to stay when they'd come back on summer break. One had a boyfriend. She lived with him when she'd come home. My other daughter stayed with my mom when she'd come home from school. So everybody had their place. Um, and it gave me an opportunity to learn how to be by myself, to live by myself, to grow and see that I could empower myself. And that was just the beginning. And I mean, there was lots of unhealthy, toxic men that came in and out of my life at that time. Um, but once I lost Nathan a year later, I had no interest in men. I had no interest in relationships. I was so heartbroken that I'd lost this man, because at that point we were talking again. I was trying to get him to come to meetings. I was trying to get him to come back to the gym to do healthy activities with me, and he had agreed to do these things on the Friday, and he died over the weekend. And it was hard. It was really hard for me to accept that we were never going to be together again. We were never going to come back together and have the beautiful ending I wanted for us. And But again, he did come and show himself to me in spirit, and that made me strong. That made me really strong, knowing he was around me at all times, and knowing that he was looking out for me. And I remember I got a beautiful reading done because I was struggling so much with the loss. And this beautiful reader, Gail, said to me, that Nathan was helping bring a partner into my life that was going to be the biggest love I'd ever experienced, and that I deserved that, and that he wanted me to have that big love that I deserved, that he wasn't able to give me, even though he did in so many ways. Like I said, Nathan loved me, all my darkness, all my light. And there was a lot of darkness in me back then. And he accepted me for that. He didn't judge me for those things. He made me feel safe as I was. I didn't feel like I had to change or grow to be what he needed me to be. I was okay by myself. Um, so he really helped me with that. And that began my spiritual journey. I started diving into Reiki more, and I started looking into life coaching, and I started doing the work on myself, mainly through the 12-step program is where I started the work. We call it step work. I and the step work is an pretty intense deep dive into yourself. It's a deep dive into who you are as a person, how you are in the world, what traumas have you experienced. Like, you are doing a full inventory on yourself, and you're facing the past, and you're forgiving, and you're letting go. And that was the start of personal growth for me, was doing the step work and learning about myself, and learning that, oh my god, I'm a really good person. I'm not a bad person. And yeah, I might have done some bad things in my addiction, and I might have hurt some people, and but I'm not that woman anymore. I'm a good woman at the core of me. I am a healer. I am a helper. I am a good woman. I am funny. I'm beautiful inside and out. I am a giver. When I am with somebody, I give everything I have to that person. And anybody who's been with me in a romantic setting knows that. If you've been on the receiving end of my love, you know how big it is. And I used to think that was wrong. I used to think there was something wrong with me, that I had all this love inside of me to give, but that's wrong. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm perfect just the way I am. And the reason I have all this love in me is because I was meant to do this. I was meant to take all of that love, and some of this love has been grown from pain. I've learned along the way through this journey that I know how to transmute pain into love. I know how to take pain and turn it into light. And that's why I have so much in me, because I've had a lot of pain and I've had a lot of struggle along the way, but I've learned how to take those experiences and rise from them. And every time I take a painful experience and I rise, I transmute it. I transmute that energy into love and into light. And that's my superpower. That's what I'm really good at, is overcoming and transmuting, and not letting things get the better of me, not letting things create a victimhood in me. Um, I see a struggle as it comes. I learn the lesson from it, and I rise, and I keep rising. And I would say that through the toxic relationships, I realized I had a pattern. I was attracting in emotionally unavailable men. And the reason I was doing that is because I didn't value myself. I still didn't feel worthy inside. I was still chasing men that recreated the father wound, that recreated what my father had done to me as a child, which was not making me feel seen, validated, or heard. So all I was doing, the universe was allowing me opportunities to recreate that same father experience, to show me it's time to heal this. And I didn't get it for a long time. I was angry at God. Why are you not letting me meet a good man? I'm doing the work. Don't you see? I'm working on myself. But it wasn't until this last year, a year ago, actually this month, a year ago, November, um, I made a decision to start my Reiki mastery. I had been introduced to this beautiful woman, Karen Armstrong, and I love you so much. You are my guiding light. You have been my guiding light in the last year. You have taught me what it means to be a powerful woman in my divine femininity. You've taught me how to um, transmute. You've helped me learn how to transmute more of this pain, and to trust in myself, and to trust in my journey and in the divine. You gave me that, Karen. So thank you for that. I made an agreement with her a year ago to start my Reiki mastery, and I knew it was going to be a big thing. I knew that it was going to be the start of the real healing work happening within me. It was coming to my completion of the healing work and the struggle. And I knew at the end of this that I was going to come out with a whole different experience, and attaching to a new timeline. Um, and when I started this journey a year ago, um, what I recognize, and you know what, maybe I need to back up a little bit, because I do identify as being on a twin flame journey, and I do think that's important in my story, because that man helped me so much along the way. So I do think I need to back it up a little bit, and it's important to mention him in this. I met him, Jason, 3 years ago. We met on a dating app at a time when I was so sick and tired of attracting the wrong type of guy. And um, the first time I met him, whoa, whoa. It was like sparks flew. My heart was beating fast. I felt a sense of familiarity with this man. It's like I knew him from somewhere else. I felt so comfortable and so safe with him and so excited. Everything felt electric between us. And he felt it too. And I remember we sat at that coffee shop for hours, and both of us were kind of like, oh my God, how did all this time pass by? um, we decided to leave the date, but I remember even on that first date, and I'm never like this, I'm never forward like this, but I was like, I really want to kiss you. I never would do that on a first date. Like, I would never be the person to make that move, but I really felt this deep desire to kiss him. And it was beautiful and it was magical and all the feelings were there. And things were going really well with him. And I thought he was presenting to me as this secure partner, this open partner, somebody who could talk about their feelings, who was emotionally available, who was ready for the same type of love that I was looking for. Um, we just felt like we fit. And I didn't understand back then what this was. I didn't know it was a twin flame. I didn't know what this was, or a soulmate, or whatever. Um, but it was right person, wrong time. And I don't believe that he was over a past person. And it kept sort of coming up in our interactions. And it wasn't until I sort of called him out on it that everything blew up between us and he walked away from me. And you know what? It needed to happen. I needed that rejection. I needed to feel the rejection of somebody I desperately felt I was meant to be with, because the rejection from him helped me see myself, learn to see my own value without needing it from him. Um, and we stopped talking. It took me a year to get over him. I'm sad to admit this, but it did take me 1 year to move on and get over this man. And then I did get over him, and I was feeling very strong and very empowered. And I was starting to come into my femininity and my divine power. Um, and then he came back. He came back a year ago, actually this month. It was November 29th last year. I received a text from a number that I didn't quite remember. It looked familiar because I deleted him out of my contacts. And he reconnected with me. And I was very taken back that he had come back 2 years later. And I was excited, thinking, oh my God, this was a connection that was a strong connection. There's something to this. Why has he come back after 2 years? I never thought I was going to hear from this person again. Like, there's got to be something to this. And of course, we met up in person, same sparks flew, same intense connection, and he ran again. And I didn't hear from him for like 3, 4 weeks. And I was crushed again. And we kept repeating this loop. He'd come back, he'd feel the intensity, he'd run. He'd come back, he'd feel the intensity. I would pour all my love into him, and he'd run. And we kept repeating this loop about 5 or 6 times over the period of the last year, until I finally said no more. Until I finally started videos started popping up in my feed about twin flames and soulmates and the lessons that these relationships offer us. So I started listening, and I started taking the lessons rather than being a victim and, oh my God, he's such an asshole, and oh my God, why did he treat me like this? And no, I started looking at this going, what can I learn from this? Okay, he's rejected me again. He's ghosted me again. I'm not feeling validated from him. Ah, there it is. I am looking for validation from him. Why can't I give this to myself? What is it that I'm looking for from him that I could clearly start trying to give to myself? So, this whole last year, and it's very funny how it's fitting into my mastery program, this very intense relationship, on again, off again, taught me. It taught me how to choose myself. I had to set hard boundaries with this man. I had to cut him off when that was the last thing I wanted to do. I had to say no more. You don't get to treat me like this. You don't get to ghost me. You don't get to treat me like an option. You don't get to do this to me anymore. And if you're going to keep doing this to me, then we're done. I don't want you. I don't want anything to do with you. You need to rise and meet me where I'm at, or you don't get to be part of my life. And that was hard for me because I didn't want to do that. Everything in me wanted to run to him and make it better and fix it so we could be together. And I recognized along the way that it was the potential of what I thought we could be that I was hanging on to. It wasn't necessarily him. And that was very empowering for me in this last year, was to recognize that, oh my God, it's not really him I'm hanging on to. It's the potential of what I think him and I could be, but that's not what's happening. And I have to look at the truth of that and recognize that he needs to do work on himself. And until he does the work on himself, he's never going to rise and meet me at my level. And that might take years. That was the most recent realization that I had, is that this man could take years to get to this place. And I need to stop putting my life on hold for a potential. So lately, my my growth has been, I'm letting go of this twin flame now. I truly felt like we were coming back together, and maybe we will. Maybe one day we will. But I'm no longer putting my life on hold for this person. I'm no longer keeping myself at a lower level, hoping he's going to meet me. And if I keep rising, it's going to take him longer to get to me. That was my thinking. Well, if I keep growing and I keep rising, that's just going to be more work that he's going to have to do to get to me. So, I'm just going to keep myself here and wait for him to meet me there. And then I'll keep going. But no, don't do that. Um, I'm glad I chose not to do that. I'm glad I chose to keep rising despite my need to want to be with this man. I don't need to be with him anymore. Yes, I still love him. I mean, I need to be honest. I do still love him. Um, but I don't need to be with him anymore. And now I'm working on manifesting the right partner into my life, by creating lists. I have a very detailed list of the details of who I want in a partner. And Jason is no longer the face that's attached to that. It could be anybody. It could be anybody now. It doesn't need to be him anymore. And that's a very powerful thing for me. Um, because I always felt like it needed to be him. And in the past year, I've also done two very intense shamanic journeys with two beautiful shamans. And that is where my inner child work happened. That is where I recognized the pain and the trauma that both my parents caused me. And that's why I was attracting these types of men, because I was recreating the father wound without even realizing it. And maybe whoever's watching this video right now, maybe you're doing the same thing. You're recreating a father or a mother wound in your partners and you don't even recognize it. So, yeah, I mean, I hope that this video brings you, I don't know, some inspiration. I mean, I didn't even get into everything. I was raped in my teenage years at prom, um, and raped while I was under the influence, and people were coming in and watching this happen, and nobody stopped it, and nobody did anything about it. That was also something I had to overcome, and I don't know why God just felt like I needed to say that. Um, but he felt like I feel like I need to share that I was raped as a teenager. And I also believe that I was probably sexually abused as a child. I don't have a memory of it, but I just know that my behaviors as a little girl shouldn't have been that way. I shouldn't have known the things that I knew. And I always thought sex was dirty. I always grew up thinking sex was a dirty thing. Um, and I had a lot of shame around it. So I'm pretty certain that I was abused as a child. I just blocked it out. And during my healing process, I tried to tap into it, but Mother Gaia told me it's not important. seeing it as an important on my journey, just knowing it and healing it and forgiving the whoever it was is all that's important on my journey. So I'm grateful I didn't have to revisit that. I didn't have to go in and look at that. I was able to just forgive the person who did it, because clearly something must have happened to them for them to behave this way. Like, everybody is only working from their trauma. So even when it came to Jason in this last year and all the frustration I felt with him, I mean, and he was seeing other people. I caught him. God allowed me a moment in time to see him out and about with another woman. And he was lying to me and telling me he wasn't talking to other people, but he was. And here I was, the idiot, being loyal to him, even though we weren't in a commitment. I was being loyal to him and to our connection, even in separation, because I was so certain he was doing the work too. And, but I don't know that anymore. And I don't care anymore, is I guess the point. Um, the place that I'm at today, I am an incredibly empowered woman today. I am powerful. Um, my life has changed so drastically in the last, like, October moving into November, huge shifts for me. My abundance has doubled. My income has doubled. I am being moved into a new position in my career as a teacher now, not a salesperson. I can feel love is on the horizon as well, because I've done the work. I've not been shying away from the work. I have spent the last year doing an intense mastery program, an intense program of self discovery, of learning to let go of people that don't treat me with respect and love. I've had to let go of friendships. I've had to let go of romantic partnerships. Um, Important people in my life, people that I deemed to be very important people in my life, I had to let go of. And that was really hard for me to choose me and let these people go. And the universe sort of just washed away other people from my life that weren't aligning anymore with who I am and who I'm becoming. Um, and I do feel like God is asking me to be a messenger right now, a messenger of hope, a messenger that you are not alone. If you are on this journey, if you have struggled with addiction, mental health, suicidal thoughts, if you've struggled with not feeling good enough, um, not being able to be on your own, this video is for you. And I hope this shows you that you're not alone. I hope this gives you the encouragement and the inspiration to do something about it, that you don't have to stay in that place. We are unlimited beings with unlimited potential, and we can have anything we desire in this lifetime. And I'm proof of that. I am, everything I want is unfolding right now. And I can't even believe that, but it is. And staying faithful and having a spiritual practice. I have a spiritual practice every day. I've had this practice for the last, I don't know, 3, 4 years. I get up, I make a coffee, I meditate for 20 minutes. I do different meditations in the morning, and then I journal. I journal where I'm at. I check in with myself in that journaling to see how am I feeling? Where is this coming from? Let me check in with my body, with myself. Um, and then I do a gratitude list, and that is a part of my day every day. I need that. I need to be anchored into that. That anchors me into my spiritual practice and my faithfulness. It's very important to me. And I have Reiki as well. I mean, I'm becoming a Reiki master now, which is going to give me the ability to teach. I am a Reiki practitioner on the side. I do Reiki out of Newmarket, Ontario. So for anybody watching this that's in the area who wants to get a Reiki session done, reach out to me. I believe my prices are very good compared to other people in the area. I'm a powerful channeler, and I help people come back to themselves. My role in my Reiki and in my healing is to help people come back to themselves, to stop using all these distractions outside of themselves, and to learn to come back to self, back to self love, back to source, back to self. So, I love you guys. I hope this helps you. I hope you have a beautiful day. For whoever stayed through to the end of this hour-long video, thank you. I appreciate you for seeing me, for hearing me, for validating my story. I love you guys. Mwah.